Okay, we ready? All righty.
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Danielson. Welcome to my podcast called Soul Fight. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself and my passion. And it's to want to help anyone willing to rediscover their soul, to find their power, and to join us all in this mission of life, to come together. Along my personal path, I found different healing modalities. Some work for me, some don't, but I've aligned to the ones that do. And I know that just because they don't work for me, don't mean they won't for someone else. So I want to bring the whole spectrum here. Any kind of, healing that we can do for ourselves to, draw closer to the Creator, to become unified as a whole, all of us here. And I get it. It's a fight. It's a path. It's personal. It's dark sometimes. But I realize that each path is its own and it is a soul fight. So I'm here to bring, like I said, all modalities in one place, no judgments, no preconceived notions, just a space where, you can learn and speak freely with the Spirit walking through us or walking with us. So before I jump into the first episode and introduce my guest here, I'd like to do a little prayer. And it's a prayer to Archangel Gabriel. And I felt like he's been walking with me through a lot of my life. And honestly, it wasn't until very recently that I've allowed myself to become still enough and to hear this voice clearly. So I feel like I owe it to the divine. I owe it to you, everyone listening, to say this prayer before I step into the first episode. So this prayer, like I said, is to Archangel Gabriel. And this invocation is for like any artistic or communication project or, anything you want to jump into. And this will definitely help with that. So I'm going to take a moment here and say the prayer. Archangel Gabriel, I ask for your presence as I launch into this podcast so I can bring healing through truth of information, untainted and from a clean source. Please open all creative channels so all may be truly inspired. Help me open my mind so I can bring unique ideas into the mind of others. Please help me sustain the energy and motivation to follow through on all these inspirations. Thank you. Amen. And Aho. Beautiful. All right. So without further ado, here is my first guest on the first episode of Soul Fight, Chad Hargrove. Really, really cool guy, great father, good friend. I met him at the Spring Phoenix in Ohio, and we were a lot of good music, a lot of good people there, and I was walking around just enjoying the atmosphere with my girlfriend, and I look over and I see this dude, and he's got an eye drone right here, and I was like, yes, I've got to find him. I've got to talk to him. But it's funny, I just continued, there's a lot of people there, so we just kind of continued through. And, I just made a mental note, that, I don't know, it was just an energy with him that drew me in. And probably 30 minutes later, I was at one of the vendors, and here he comes, like right up to me. We start talking, and the rest is history. Here's Chad. You guys introduce him or send some prayers, bringing him in, and I'll let him lead us into the podcast.
I appreciate that, Brad. Yeah, that was a serendipitous moment there. I really enjoyed our first meeting, and you had told me about the eye that you saw. My daughter had painted it on my forehead, and I thought it was really cool and interesting story how you mentioned that.
Really cool.
I'm thrilled to be on here with you, man. I know this podcast is going to do great things, and I know it's going to bring a lot of good information to people, a lot of good insight and perspective to people. And like you said, the path can be dark. The path is treacherous. Part of our human experience is experiencing treachery and darkness and suffering, and learning how to turn that darkness and suffering from a monster into a teacher. And we do that through this transformation that you're speaking about.
For sure.
Coming in contact with our Creator and bringing forth the soul from beneath the rubble of the human mind that we bury it in over the years. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm thrilled to be on here, man. Thank you.
Hey, same to you, man. And yeah, our first podcast will be, I actually went to a workshop at the last pyro that we went to, and that Chad was having, and it was on what is freedom and what destroys it. And interestingly enough, I was not aware of either fully until I, went to his workshop here. That was a lot of good teachings that day.
I was thrilled to have you there, man. And you weren't alone. And you said you didn't know what either were. And not to say that I and my human mind know what those are, but my soul level, heart-based intelligence knows what true freedom is and knows what rights are. And we live in a society designed very specifically and very intentionally to keep us separated from that truth. If you are trying to exert control over a person or a people, the last thing you want is for them to come in contact with truth and come in contact with the understanding, the knowledge, and the wisdom of what true freedom is. So yeah.
Right. And that's what, you're, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you're cool. Yeah, you're good. I was finished.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying, and it's nice, like, you just bring a reminder, because we all at a deep, spiritual level, we all know this. We've just forgotten it. And you bring, you relight that fire, sure. that flame of curiosity there.
Right. Yeah. That's what my goal is. It's not to be a master, because I'm not a master. I'm not a guru, and I'm not a, the most learned philosophical and spiritual teacher on the planet or anything like that. I just I've found what's been buried beneath, and I know that it lies within every other sentient being in the universe. And my goal is to just polish my divine mirror and let others see their true self in that mirror, and remember what they have been distracted from or forgotten. So yeah, man, I really appreciate your words, man. And I appreciate you coming to the workshop and everything. It was great. And yeah, man, I'm ready to jump into this stuff. We got some cool stuff here to talk about.
Nice. So just, real quickly, you don't have to get like deeply into it, but give us a little bit of your background before, whatever you want to call it, your spiritual awakening or your, path.
Sure.
Here.
Yeah. I remember instances when I was a child very vividly, sitting and pondering some profound spiritual principles that I didn't recognize as such at the time, but particularly Hermetic principles, or the principles written down or supposed to have been written down by Hermes, and what the whole Hermetic philosophy is based off of. Pondering that as a child, and like very vividly thinking about the law of mentalism and how everything exists as a thought and a vibration, and that nothing is ever at rest. And those are two of the immutable principles, mentalism and vibration. So thinking about that as a child, and I didn't remember thinking about that as a child until I kind of came back around to my spiritual nature. But I had a pretty average.
It's funny how that happens, huh?
yeah, it really is, man. How we our amnesia. We have amnesia when we come into the body, and then we build even more amnesia over top of what we're even born in the human body with, as we go through society's washing machine of imagination and creativity. So
like you said, it's no, like you said, it's no accident that this happens, you know?
Right. It's no accident. And for the viewers, there is a little bit of a lag on my internet connection. So you might see Brad and I stacking up our words and thoughts together, but just bear with us. This will be no issue. So yeah, I had a pretty average, upper middle class upbringing, American suburbia, athletics, and I neglected academia, and I focused on athletics in high school. Applied for undergraduate education like 2 weeks before classes started in college, and got in and got my bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry with a pre-medicine discipline. Then I went to the University of Louisville School of Medicine, and had a few leaves of absence because my mother was very ill during that time. And in 5 years, completed my MD and got graduated in 2013 with my medical doctorate. And then went and did my pediatrics training at Southern Illinois University and St. John's Children's Hospital in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois. So I had this like inherent, innate connection with source or spirit from the time I was a child, but I strayed far from that, like many of us do, through the programming and the conditioning that I was subject to in life. Went down the path of hardcore, rigid conservatism and republicanism, and then went a little bit to the left, then went to the center, and then grew once I really came to understand the spirit and the truth of freedom, and that all beings are free, and then anything that points otherwise is an absolute deception. I became an anarchist. The word anarchy simply means, an is the Latin prefix for without, and archon means ruler. Anarchy just means no rulers, or as many of us in the community like to say, no masters, no slaves. No person is legitimately the master of another, and no person may legitimately be the slave of another. So don't as the society would have you believe, anarchy does not mean chaos. It does not mean no rules. It just means no rulers.
They've tried very hard to make that the definition of it, to prove to us this is what anarchy is.
Sure.
This is right. This is disruptive, unorganized, and it's not.
Right.
I mean, it's not. It's very. All right.
When you release sentient beings from a state of duress, or the looming threat of coercive violence, that's where true order is born, and that's where chaos actually goes away. It can be chaotic at first when people have no idea how to respond, but anyway, we'll get into that after a little while. Let me finish up with my background. My first week of pediatrics residency, where I'm working 110 hours a week, learning to be a doctor, trying to care for patients. I went through a pretty traumatic divorce, and I was 5 hours away from my daughter, and I was basically just told, I'm not moving to Springfield with you. I'm keeping your daughter here. The most tremendous suffering and heartbreak of my life, total devastation, the throes of depression, as bad as despair can get. And it was during that time that despair went on for probably 6 to 9 months, as I struggled and fought through to be there for my patients and their families. That despair went on for 6 to 9 months. And during that time, I had the epiphany, the awakening, the revelation, the Gnostic experience, the mystical experience, the moment of divine truth, whatever you want to call it, where the knowing, not the belief or the opinion of, but the knowing that forgiveness will set me free from the pain and the suffering I was causing myself and the mother of my child and my child. And that my suffering was so great that if I only made the free will choice to forgive and not forget, but to forgive, then I would be free. I would break the shackles that I was placing upon myself. And so that really is what started just this cosmic download of information, and like opening of the heart, and really bringing forth the metaphorical statue from the stone. that's when I really began shedding the excess layers of stone. Even though you look at my physique and wouldn't know it, I was shedding the excess layers of stone and bringing forth that statue from what was within. And from that point on, I've been dedicated to teaching, traveling, teaching, offering my time and service to others, free of charge, and really trying to just get the word out and remind people that for the more they forgive, the less they will suffer, and the more they understand moral principles and freedom, the less they will suffer. So I've developed a charitable organization called Aswithin, or the Aswithin Emancipation Project, and we offer a variety of services on there, donation-based services, but there's no minimum donation required for any of the services. I do like wedding officiating. I'll come to like private events and parties and hold workshops there, like turn it into something a little more than a barbecue and a football game. I'll actually come and, have a group discussion and hang out and talk with people about these topics. We're working towards creating space to hold retreats, sacred brotherhood retreats, one-on-one sessions for forgiveness and breaking mental and emotional chains. So anything devoted to individual and collective freedom is what we deal with at Aswithin Emancipation Project. So yeah, that's what I'm up to now, man.
Nice. And going back a little bit on your story, I mean, you were going through some difficult, hard times there, and that's when it happens, that break.
Yep.
There has to be that breaking of the mold, the shell we've been
the shattering of the calcified ego. Yeah, it's just shattering that calcified ego.
It feels horrible at the time. It's the truth. Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Okay, so
that is when it happens.
Yeah. I guess the first thing we could jump into is, what is freedom? Like, individually, collectively.
So, myself and many others, like these are not all my, my definitions, and these are not my opinions or beliefs. These are, this is my way of assigning words to universal truths that exist regardless of my opinion, my perspective, or my belief. My belief has no bearing on the fact that these dynamics exist. So freedom is the ability to exercise all of your rights, your natural rights, without the fear of punishment or coercion or violence being carried out against you, violence in any form. So if you are not able to exercise what your natural rights are without being afraid that somebody could or would, or if they knew about it, would carry out violence against you, then you're not free. And you're either free you're either free or you're enslaved to your own ego, enslaved to the ego of others, enslaved by the will of psychopaths or a corrupt financial institution or what have you. So that is what freedom is generally. And as far as an individual goes, individual freedom is you're not truly free to do all that, regardless of what anybody else would do to you, if you are still not the cause of your experience. If you're not, if your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are dictated by the chaos of the world, the pressures of society, what this person said or what that person did, you're not free. You're enslaved to your ego to a degree. And I'm enslaved to my ego. I'm not saying any of this to profess that I've broken completely free of my humanity and I have no egoic attachments and negative thought patterns that keep me enslaved, because that's not true. I am a human being and that does happen to me. But it's about a continual process of discovery and coming in contact with these things that enslave us. So the word sovereign or sovereignty. The word sovereign comes from the Latin super, which means above, and then reinos, which means reign or rulership. So to be sovereign means to be above the rulership or the reign of anybody else, any outward forces. They don't have a say. They don't dictate your thoughts, your emotions, or your actions. You are establishing dominion over your own kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
The only kingdom you have the right to control, and that is called internal monarchy or internal kingship or queenship over the kingdom of self. So to be truly free on an individual level, you are the governing force of your own thoughts, your own emotions, and your own actions. And when those are based in truth and true and aligned with true spiritual law or true natural law, then you are sovereign and you are free. And we all will slip up from time to time, you know, and the pressures of the society and the world we live in can cause us to forget or stray from the path, minute to minute, week to week, hour to hour, whatever. But it's about always striving and having a spirit of dedication to staying on that path, bringing forth nature's laws and principles from your heart and aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with it. So that's what sovereignty or individual freedom is.
Yeah, just picking ourselves back up, dusting off, and being like, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep going and try it again. I'm going to keep trying. That's the key.
Exactly. And when we make forgiveness, true forgiveness, not Hollywood forgiveness or not egoic performatism forgiveness, but true forgiveness, if we use that as a principle in our life, we can pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off rather quickly and without hating ourselves for our mistakes. And that's so important, because as long as you keep piling on self-loathing beliefs and self-limiting thoughts and emotions, you know, deep within yourself, you're never going to truly overcome and be free. So that's why the principle of forgiveness is so important in the things that I talk about. And then you asked, you know, also about collective freedom. What is collective freedom? Well, collective freedom is where the collective or all of society or all sentient beings have the same freedom that you do, the same freedom that we just described. The truly enlightened being knows that as one suffers, all suffer, and as one is enslaved, all are enslaved. So it is great to become free yourself, but if you're not doing what's within your rights to exert an influence and help lead others to their own to free themselves and to become sovereign under their own volition, then it's truly not you know, in my view, truly not a spiritual path. What good is it for me to believe that I'm free if my neighbor's suffering, you know? So helping others do the same.
And ultimately,
yeah, go ahead.
Awesome.
I
was just saying, and ultimately, I mean, you know, you're right. You're not free. You know,
right.
If you're on that path to free yourself, and it's kind of like you know, I'm going to take care of me and not worry about anybody else. And I mean, that's not what we're put here to do. You know, as sentient beings, all connected. So
yeah, that is not unity consciousness. That's still an ideology based in the deception of separation and the illusion of you know, division among the one or the all, you know. So yeah, so that's how it applies, you know. True collective freedom is when all beings are free. Everyone is free to exercise their natural rights without the fear of punishment or violence being carried out against them. And that can be coercive violence, psychological violence, you know, subversive, you know, violence of manipulation and thought control, mind control, heart control, all those things. You know, when they're free from all forms of violence and coercion and the subversion of their consent or the free will, then that's what collective freedom is.
Nice. So, okay, I guess my next question is, we think about the rights we have when we're, as far as, we're touching on freedom, talking about being free.
Right.
So, you have rights. So what exactly is a right?
A right,
Like by definition.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start off with this, what is freedom and what is a right? Because a lot, me, myself included, so many of us feel like we know what a right is or we know what freedom is. But if someone asked us on the spot, we would just kind of, a lot of times stare at them like a deer in headlights. And rights are like muscles. If you don't use them, you lose them. And how can we ever hope to manifest freedom if we don't know what that is, or we don't know what that looks like? And how can we ever how do we ever know?
We don't know.
Yeah, how do we ever know if we're free to exercise our natural rights if we don't know what our natural rights are? And so a right, I can talk all day long. We could talk for an eternity about how it's your right to cut your hair the way you want, or wear a mala, or wear a white t-shirt. It's my right to wear, we could go on for an eternity about what every single right that you have. But instead, let's just use the apophatic approach, or the approach of negation. And we'll define a right as any action that does not initiate harm to another sentient being. And if we can carry that pocket definition, elevator pitch definition of a right at the forefront of our consciousness, we will ever be aware, and more increasingly aware, of what our rights are, how our thoughts, emotions, and actions infringe upon or violate the rights of others, and how others' thoughts, emotions, and actions can try to violate the rights of ourselves. And that's, to me, there's nothing more important. If I'm not talking about this and trying to remind people, because they know this, everybody deep down in their heart, even the most ruthless, egoic, material-based human being knows deep down that it's not their right to violate the consent of another person or another being, or to initiate harm, which, any violation of consent is the initiation of harm. Everyone knows that deep down inside. And if I'm not going around reminding of people, I'm essentially placing shackles and chains on my children, because the world and the ideologies that poison the minds and hearts of mankind are leading us far away from the truth that we all have deep within our hearts. So that's what a right is. And by
right, definition,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, and by definition, the way you say it, it sounds like, well, that's easy. Everybody could do that. Everybody does that. But then you look at, society as a whole, and man, we're far ways away from that.
Yeah, really far away from it. And, and most of us are so far away that there's a small minority of people whose actions are truly in violation of rights. But the reason that they do that and get away with it is because the vast majority of the planet gives a different moral standard to certain people in certain positions of power than they hold themselves to. So like, most people, for instance, don't wake up in the morning and go threaten their neighbor and take their money. Most people don't do that. But as soon as November rolls around, they run to the voting booth and they vote for someone else who has a lot more violent capacity than they have to threaten their neighbor and take their money. So it's not just that, like, you're totally fine as long as you're not physically beating someone up every day. Well, yeah, that's a good place to start. But if you're rooting for someone else to physically beat someone up every day, or if you're rooting for someone else to hurt your neighbor, then you're not living according to principles. And that's what it's all about, restoring principles and values.
And another yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good. I'm done.
That lag, it sounds like I'm off.
No, it's okay.
It just reminded me, you brought another analogy in at the workshop that I really liked. You said, like, with would you kick your neighbor's door in if you knew he had marijuana, take his marijuana, take whatever else, and lock him up away from his family? Well, no. But we allow
Right.
We allow police officers to do this, do that very thing.
Right. And if they resisted you kicking their door in, you'd kill them or beat them within an inch of their life. You wouldn't do that. But somehow, we'll stand by and watch that happen to our neighbor. Or even worse, we'll want that. There are the mindset and the consciousness is shifting slowly away from this horribly failed war on drugs, but still there are still people who say, yeah, you broke the law. You violated the dictates scribbled on paper by some politician that you don't even know the name of. So they're allowed to kick down your door and lock you in a cage for having a plant. And there's never has been, and never will be any legitimacy to anyone's right to do that to someone. It doesn't exist. You cannot abdicate a right that you don't have. You cannot give someone a right that you don't have, whether it's 100 people in Congress or however many. Every human being has the same rights they're born with, and they'll die with the very same rights. And if you don't have the right to do it to someone else, you cannot give anyone else that right, even if they do some pseudo religious ritual and swear over a Bible and wear a blue tie and shirt or a red tie and shirt and live in Washington, D.C. You can't give them a right that you don't have. So if you wouldn't do it to your neighbor, nobody can. And it's so simple that it's ridiculous. This is called kindergarten morality, and we've forgotten. We have to remember.
It really is. I mean, spiritually and I guess compassionately, we've, collectively we've failed.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have.
Sure.
To become aware and ingrain, instill that.
Right.
We're talking about it, very intentional.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
I'm glad
designed.
You're here to shed the light on that.
And we're all here to shed the light.
Mm-hmm.
Once we come in contact with this, you don't have to be running around the country leading workshops and teaching online seminars or anything like that. But when you come into contact with this information, you have a moral obligation to spend a little bit less time talking about the score of the football game or Kim Kardashian's butt or Angelina and Brad Pitt or whatever. You have a moral obligation to spend a little bit less time doing that and a little bit more time saying, hey, are you free? Is there anybody threatening you if you don't meet this list of criteria? Things like that. It should be said, and I can't make anybody else say that or talk about that, but I think deep down inside, that if you want to be free, you have to remind your neighbors that they are free, and nobody has a legitimate right to tell them or convince them otherwise. And real quick, I wanted to throw in, we asked what a right was, and a right, is what is your right, is what is your right to do. It's a right, and as opposed to a wrong. It's called a right for a reason, and the diametric opposite of a right is any transgression against natural law, any true transgression against someone else's consent, and among those as far as those transgressions go, there are 7. I think the Bible's got it wrong. The Bible has 7 deadly sins, but I think those are more like 7 things that aren't going to help lead you to a good lifestyle or to a happy life. But the true 7 deadly sins are the true 7 transgressions against another sentient being, which are rape, assault, murder, theft, trespass, coercion, and willful deception or willfully lying. And the assault includes psychological assault and verbal and emotional assault. Those are all forms of violence, or in other words, they violate someone else's rights. All transgressions, all true wrongdoings fall in one of those categories. And when you really boil them down, they are all a form of theft. And what are we here on this planet to learn? Don't steal. Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. Rape is the theft of another person's free will consent to sexual relationship. Assault is the theft of someone else's physical well-being or psychological well-being or emotional well-being. Murder is the theft of someone else's life that does not belong to you. Theft is the unjust taking of someone else's belongings that they rightfully acquired. Let's see, rape, assault, murder, theft. Trespass is the theft of someone's right to feel secure in their domain, or secure in their dwellings. Coercion is the theft of someone's free will consent to doing something, the theft of someone's ability to consent to their free will consent. And then willfully lying or willful deception is the theft of someone's ability to make a free will informed decision, to have a fully informed decision and have all the information needed to make a decision based in truth. So those 7 deadly sins are all forms of theft. And really what we need to go back to is to not steal. Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. And we're going to be doing pretty well. And don't support anyone who does steal.
And, you had a good point. You were talking about the Bible. So it seems to me also that the 7 deadly sins in the Bible kind of focus on you, like I got to take care of myself. I got to do better than the person next to me. So, that was purposely done to, it's separation.
Right.
The 7 true deadly sins that you just named brings unity and non-harm to the people around you, which brings people together collectively, which is not what they want.
Exactly. Yeah, the non-aggression. As you know, all religions were formed, while there are seeds of truth and a lot of good information and a lot of good takeaways in every religion that I've come in contact with, they were all specifically designed to be a mind prison. The word religion comes from the Latin religare, which means to bind or hold back. And they are mind prisons. So yeah, those things, and the editing of the Bible and the revisions of the Bible and the Council of Nicaea and all that was designed specifically to restore power to the Romans and to keep the flock under control. And those 7 deadly sins written about in the Bible, like sloth and don't be lazy. It's not immoral to be lazy. It's not a true natural law transgression to be lazy. It's not prudent to be lazy. It wouldn't be good to just lay face down on the bed all day, every day. You're not going to have a very fulfilled life and really enjoy your time here. But you're not. You have the right to do that if you want to. So it's important to differentiate these things.
Right, and it's funny to see how that's been twisted. Also, like, let's look at lazy. Like, what do most people define as lazy? You were talking about laying face down, like in the bed and never moving. That's very you're not gonna have a very productive, not a very fulfilling life. But a lot of people look at lazy as just the ability to slow down.
Right. Yeah, they mistake leisure with lazy. Yeah,
it's like we have to. You got to be doing something. You got, like, growing up. My grandfather, bless his heart, man, he provided for all of us. Had 6 daughters. But if you weren't working and you weren't laboring from dark to dark, you weren't doing anything. You were doing nothing of any value.
Right. Yeah, that's what comes with the whole paradigm of materialism. Thinking that this, what we produce with our hands and material, and what we bring in materially and monetarily is of the utmost importance, which it's not. Surviving and providing for ourselves and our family is a part of our human experience, and should be done with care and with dedication. But those 7 deadly sins really convince people that if they take a break, they're lazy, or if they sit down and relax and have some leisure time, go on a vacation or something, that they're lazy. And that's just another aspect of mind control.
Yeah, because when you become still and you go inside, you start having realizations like we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous. It's dangerous to them.
Yeah, exactly. They need you to be worker bees and never have time for the inner life. And that's where we really manifest the best outer life.
Okay. So I guess, this leads into, you've had a lot of good points here, breaking down what a right is, what a freedom is. So what do you think the true key is to improving the current human condition, or like society as a whole?
Um, that this is where the name of my nonprofit or my charitable organization comes from, is as within, so without. And so the key as far to my best understanding, to my best estimation of the truth that I've come in contact with, the key to manifesting a better society is, doing the work within to create order and sovereignty and true freedom within ourselves, so that we are the cause of our own experience rather than the effect of all the causes around us. And that really
Exactly.
and once we do that, just by virtue of our vibratory frequency of sovereignty and freedom, we are automatically, all boats go up on a rising tide. So it's about taking personal responsibility and personal ownership of your ability and duty to free yourself. And as knowing that as you free yourself, you are helping others become free. If you have the vocabulary and the will to talk about it with others, and you want to communicate it with others, even better. Nothing forceful. You can't control what others do, but you can sure as hell talk to them. That's always within your rights. And you can let them feel what true sovereignty and freedom feels like. I try my best to hold that frequency, even on my bad days when I'm down in the dumps or feeling rough. When I walk into a room, I'm trying to hold that vibration that everybody else automatically feels free. They know they're safe around me. I'll never violate their consent. I won't allow them to violate my consent, and we're free to be whatever we want to be, as long as it's not initiating harm. So, the two most
Like you
important.
said,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, you're cool.
I was just saying, and you bring that information to them, and you plant that seed, and it might not take, right then. They might not, take it into action, but there may be a point later on when one of those rights are violated. They're like, hey, there's something with this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're here to do. Just
yeah. And yeah, and they'll see something. They'll see something happen, and they'll say, "Oh shit, I remember that. That's wrong." And I always knew that was wrong. And maybe that guy or that woman that was talking about that one time was talking about the truth. So to me, the most important balance that we all must strike is allowing forgiveness to be our state of being. And what I mean by that is, when we hate ourselves or we hate others, we are not going to act morally all the time. We are going to have a difficult time aligning with principles and really treating our neighbor and treating ourselves how we deserve and how we have the right to be treated. So self-forgiveness and forgiveness of people that have hurt us in the past or transgressed upon us in the past, and balancing that state of being of forgiveness, or balancing the principle of forgiveness with true moral principles, the principles of non-aggression and self-defense. Balancing those principles is how we truly become free. And when we basically forgiveness, non-aggression, and self-defense. Forgiveness is an action. It's an energetic offering. It's truly releasing your burdens from the past. And then non-aggression is the feminine principle, and self-defense is the masculine principle. Balancing and raising those principles within ourselves will allow us to walk our dharma and continue our path in a way where we're not going to initiate harm against others, and we're not going to stand for anyone else doing it either. We're not going to allow anyone to initiate harm against us. So basically, don't hate yourself, don't initiate aggression towards anyone, and don't allow anyone to initiate aggression towards you and your neighbor. those three things, if everyone could make a sacred commitment to balancing those three principles and have the most tremendous spirit of dedication to those three principles for the rest of their life, I think 95% of humanity's issues would be over with in a week, you know.
Oh, they'd be dissolved.
Right, they'd be dissolved. And when I say don't initiate aggression towards another sentient being, I also mean Mother Earth. I also mean the sentient earth that we inhabit and the sentient air that we breathe. And you know, the thing, don't commit a violation or violence or aggression towards our planet or your neighbor or the life here, you know. So if we committed to that, it would absolutely blow the problems out of the water. And you know, that's my mission, is to remind people that they already know that they already know that. And the reason, you know, and it's just, the problem doesn't lie with the good hearts of the people. The problem lies between the ears of 8 billion people on the planet who falsely believe that there is some sort of authority that gets in that the society they grew up in, they had all these examples of how to do wrong, that they've forgotten how to do right. But people want to do right inherently.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Nice. Okay, so I guess my next question going into this is like, what is a natural law?
So natural law has nothing to do with natural selection or Darwin's theory of macrobiological evolution or anything with Charles Darwin or anything like that. Natural law has been referred to by a million different names. Natural law is basically what we've been talking about for the past 30 minutes. And natural law just means, you know, well, natural law is a set of non-man-made, universal, immutable, eternal dynamics that exist in nature, created from the all or the cosmic mind or the divine, whatever you want to identify as that intelligent force behind creation, that binds sentient beings to the consequences of their actions. You know, people have called it karma, karmic law, God's law, moral law, cause and effect, consequentialism. These laws operate 100% of the time, absolutely flawlessly, and are absolutely perfect. And they never mess up. They never fail to return a consequence for an action. They never fail to return an effect to a cause. The good, the neutral,
right.
And
regardless. Yep. Regardless of what we believe.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Our belief has nothing to do with it. Our belief is completely irrelevant. You can choose not to believe as much as you want. You have the free will to act out of alignment with nature's laws, but you do not have the free will to avoid the consequences of how you act. And that's why those principles are so perfect, are so you know, perfect to me. Those principles, the three principles I said we need to balance, because by natural law, by universal spiritual law, if we want to manifest a free and just and equitable society, we must meet requirements. We have to meet requirements, and those requirements are understanding and aligning with natural law or moral principles, those principles we just talked about. And until we do that, we cannot and never will and never possibly could manifest what we say we want without understanding and aligning with these principles.
Exactly. And just like, you know, an example on small scale is like, it would be like me, you know, going out and walking off the edge of a cliff. No matter how much I believe that I'm not going to fall to my death. Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's still going to happen.
10 times out of 10, you're going to fall off the cliff. And you have the right, you can choose not to believe in the laws of electromagnetism. But if you stick a butter knife in a lights in a electrical outlet, it's going to deliver a consequence. If you can choose not to believe in the laws of thermodynamics, but if you touch a hot stove, you're going to get burnt 100% of the time. So just like the physical laws of creation, the natural or spiritual laws of creation, the moral, cosmic laws of creation are flawless as well. And we have to remember that and align with those laws.
All righty. So yeah, any more on that, or you want to move on?
No, I don't think so, man. That's pretty much it. You know, that natural law is there and it exists, and you don't have to believe me or take my word on it. Nobody has to do that. There is a science to discovering natural law. You can understand these laws, align your behavior with them, and observe the results. Observe the results in your life. If you create more order and freedom, and you eliminate internal conflict and confusion within your being, then you see very clearly that these laws exist and they are returning consequences for your action. Continue to act in disharmony with these laws, and you'll continue to see the chaos and disorder that we see around the planet today. It's observable. No one has to take my word for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny how we keep running around chasing our tail on that.
Yep. And beating our heads against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and I guess, moving on to my next question, like, what are moral principles, and how do they pertain, like, to the spirituality, and what, why are they important?
So, the principle, like I mentioned earlier, the word principle means first thing, that which is to be considered before all other things are considered. So if we are living according to principles, according to natural law principles, or according to moral principles, and developing an ethical code of conduct based on those principles, then before we make any decision or take any action, we are going to run a check of whether or not that action is violating the consent of another being or allowing our consent to be violated. Moral principles is the understanding of the objective difference between right and wrong. And we just went over what rights are and what wrongs are a few minutes ago. So there is a trivium process to truth discovery, and it goes knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So knowledge is developing, or some people in the liberal arts education, it's referred to as grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So right now we're developing the grammar. People are taking in the vocabulary and the grammar and the truth, the knowledge of these principles, and remembering the knowledge of these principles. The next step, which is logic or understanding, is to bring the knowledge of these principles to a level of understanding within ourselves and what they truly mean, and to develop and strengthen our internal values in accordance with that knowledge. And then the wisdom or the rhetoric part of the trivium process is to express your understanding of these principles through your actions out into the world. The way you carry yourself and your code of conduct and your behavior towards others is a reflection of what you know and what you understand. And true wisdom is had when we are acting according to that knowledge and understanding, or that grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So that's what a principle is.
Yeah. So then, through that wisdom, you have a kind of like a foundational checklist. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's the first and foremost important thing, right, before any decision is made on anything.
That's it. Yeah. And many of us have that, but through the conditioning and the programming that we've taken on through all of the institutions we go through, and our parents and doctors and coaches and teachers and principals, the school principals is what I mean. We're distracted because nobody ever reminded them. We're trying to grow beyond where we came from, not stay the same. So we need to bring these principles to an understanding and act upon them. So the two,
then if not, blurred lines and confusion.
Yeah, exactly. Obfuscation or confusion, internal conflict. Those represent, those correlate with our internal Holy Trinity, the true Holy Trinity within us. The Father, the mind or thought, Mother, the emotions or feelings, and then the divine Son or the righteous Son, which are actions. Your Holy Trinity is the only thing that you own in this entire universe. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, your true three expressions of consciousness. And true unity consciousness is aligning thought, emotion, and action so that as you think, so you feel, and so you do. And that when those three things are aligned, there is no internal conflict. There is no confusion about what is to be done, and about the way it should be done. So, in accordance with that, understanding these moral principles at the level of thought allows us to, have not control our feelings, because we have human feelings and emotions for a reason, but to not be controlled by our feelings. The two principles besides forgiveness I spoke to earlier are the non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle. If somebody came into your house right now and started physically attacking you, do you have the right to stop that attack using force?
Absolutely.
Of course, every being in creation. And so it doesn't matter what sort of violence or aggression is being initiated upon you. You have the right, because you're not initiating it. It's not violence if it's defensive force. Violence is a violation. That's where the word violence comes from. So if somebody is initiating aggression towards you or initiating harm towards you, you have the right to defend yourself. And that's the masculine pillar of these principles. It's the chalice, the upright triangle. And then the feminine pillar or principle of this understanding is the non-aggression principle. Just like nobody has the right to do that to you, you don't have the right to do it to anyone else. This is the yin and the yang, the sun and the moon, the mother and the father, the Shiva, the Shakti. Every tradition has a reference to these principles. And there's a million ways to explore and a million different archetypal features of these of the feminine and masculine. But when it's boiled down, it's non-aggression and non-allowance of aggression. The last thing I'll say on this bullet point is that everything we've just talked about, understanding these principles, aligning with these principles, and I talked about the requirements for manifesting freedom. There's something that a few researchers and few occult philosophers and teachers have dubbed the law of freedom. And there's a directly proportional relationship to freedom and morality. So as the morality of a society increases, the freedom of a society increases. And as the morality of a society decreases, the freedom of a society decreases. And I wanted to mention that. That's an important mathematical equation to represent what we're talking about here.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Because when your morals are gone, there's no morality, then everything else, and vice versa.
Right. Then it doesn't matter what you do to your neighbor or what they do to you,
Right. Okay. So, moving on, I guess the next question is, what is the principle of self-ownership?
It's really exactly what it sounds like. I just wanted to touch on this briefly. You own you, you own Brad Danielson, I own myself, and every sentient being in creation owns themselves. And there is no legitimacy to anyone's claim of ownership over you. So I talk about like with spiritual or holistic anarchy. The principle of self-ownership must be applied to to yourself and to others. You must honor the self-ownership of others. So let's just take taxation for instance. If I claim that you're going to give me this percentage of your income, the fruits of your labor, what you produce rightfully with your body and your mind, if I have a great capacity for violence and the ability to hurt you and lock you in a cage, and I tell you I'm going to take this much of your income, if you resist, I'm going to lock you in a cage, or worse, then that's me claiming ownership over your mind and your body. That is a claim to ownership over you. So that's why taxation and just the government in general is slavery. If you're not doing something, or if you are doing this, then I am going to intervene and hurt you in some way. I'm going to harm you in some way. So the self-ownership is important. That's just one example, but we must honor our own self-ownership and the self-ownership of others.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's also self-loss in ways we, a lot of people don't even think about, like our energy. Our energy.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. Like if you're having a good day and somebody comes by and intentionally or unintentionally, triggers you and pisses you off,
right.
Then, if we react to that without, using the principles we've talked about, then they have part ownership over, over your energy. Like they have control over how you're going to react.
Exactly. You are an effect rather than the cause of your experience.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So.
All right. Here we go. So yeah, we just covered the principle of self-ownership.
Yep. And so the next question, what ideologies destroy freedom today?
So this is just about, this is as important as any of the other stuff we've talked about. We have to know the weapons formed against us. There is a war on consciousness. There is a war on truth. And this is a spiritual war. It's not a battle with individuals or people. It's a battle of ideas, beliefs, and deception. It's dark, meaning, dark is not a real thing. Darkness is the absence of light. And this is the fourth hermetic principle or natural law of polarity. Fear is but the absence of love. Cold is but the absence of heat energy. So darkness is but just the absence of light, or deception is just the absence of truth. So that's what this is about. Truth versus untruth. And we can choose not to believe it, and we can choose not to recognize and understand it. But these forces, these ideologies have been implemented and propagated throughout the minds of society for a long time. And the people that propagate these things, the global think tanks, Tavistock Institute, and all the, we could just go on for podcast after podcast talking about social engineering and how institutions throughout the world do not have the best interest of humanity in heart. They have their best interest at heart. And they put these ideas out into circulation, and they put them out in ways that it gets everybody to bite on them. So the only way, or the best way to protect yourself against a weapon, is to know how that weapon works and how it affects you. If we are going to protect ourselves for a gun, we need to know what a gun is and how it hurts you. A bullet comes out of it and pierces one of your organs. So we need to find a way to stop the bullet. So these ideologies are important to understand, so we can recognize when we are feeding into or buying into these ideologies. And what that really sums up to is believing and operating as if these deceptive ideologies were true infringes upon the rights of our neighbors, and it erodes the freedom of our neighbors. So the first one I'll start with, we'll run through them kind of quick because we could do an entire episode or two on these. But the first one, and I think the most prevalent one, or one of the most important ones, is moral relativism. And moral relativism is the belief that there is no such thing as true, right, and wrong. There is no such thing as objective morality or actual truthful point of fact, right and wrong, and that mankind gets to dictate what's right and wrong, and that right and wrong can change according to how much money you have, what government rules over you, what imaginary line you were born in, what color your skin is, what religion you practice, what your job is, or what costume or uniform you wear. The belief that right and wrong is can change at the whim of legislators and majority opinion is a falsehood. It is an absolute destroyer of human freedom. The reason that
Mm-hmm.
an entire SWAT team, a militarized SWAT team, can kick down your door and draw guns on you and shoot your dog and beat you up and lock you in a cage for having a plant is because people believe that legislators and politicians are allowed to say what's right and wrong, and they're not. And that right doesn't exist. If right and wrong does not exist, then we don't have the right to oppose anything. I don't have the right to stand in opposition to rape because the rapist believes what they're doing is right, but we know better. I don't have the right to say that murder or genocide is wrong because the people carrying out the genocide believe what they're doing is right. So, wiping out the Native Americans, the German Holocaust, and the Maoist China, or Stalin's Russia, all these things, we couldn't oppose those because they thought what they were doing was right. They were convinced that they were right. And so moral relativism is the most trash and garbage and destructive ideology on this planet. And it's what allows for so much of that to go on. And people just don't stand up or say no or act about it. The next one kind of goes
Very toxic, very dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. The next ideology goes kind of hand in hand with that. And this ideology is a myth. It's mythological. It's a superstition. It's a religion. It's the world's most dangerous superstition, and it's called authority. The belief in authority. The belief that any one human being or group of human beings has legitimate coercive authority over another group of human beings. Without every horrific atrocity in the history of mankind has been carried out because a good portion of the population, or all of the population, or some people in a group believed that somebody with a really shitty idea had authority over them and had authority to tell them what to do, even if it went against their own conscience. The Holocaust was not carried out by Adolf Hitler. It was carried out by millions of Germans who hallucinated Adolf Hitler to be an authority in their life. And so
that's funny. I was going to say the example that comes to the forefront with most people would probably be the Holocaust. That's
right. Yeah. And the same with, the indigenous people of the United States. They were absolutely decimated and slaughtered, not only physically, but their culture destroyed, their language destroyed, their everything, their way of life burned, and their children stolen and indoctrinated. And they just, every bit as horrific or more horrific than the Jewish
stolen and murdered.
Yeah, stolen, murdered, raped, all this. And it all took place because certain people in uniform and certain people in the population believed that the government or some group of people had the authority to do that to the indigenous people of this land, and they didn't have the authority to do it. It was a false, erroneous belief. So it's important to be aware that authority does not exist. It never has, and it never will. And that's coercive authority. In other words, the authority of one person to tell another person what to do, and if they don't, they're going to be in trouble, doesn't exist. Now, I want to throw a quick caveat in there. Intellectual authority does exist. If Brad's a rocket scientist and he and I are working on a rocket to get to the moon, he has intellectual authority on building that rocket, and I'm going to defer to him on a lot of the decision making so I don't blow myself up. You know, if I'm trying to operate a nuclear or a particle collider, and I'm someone who works with computers, and I'm working with a nuclear physicist or a particle physicist, they have intellectual authority on what we're doing, and they're going to be making the majority of the decisions. So intellectual authority must be differentiated from coercive authority. So that's an important caveat, but coercive authority does not exist. We'll go through these next few rather quickly. Another one is solipsism. Solipsism is the belief that the only reality is one's own perception, and that anything outside of that perception is not real or doesn't exist, and that there is no such thing as truth, that objective truth does not exist. The only thing that exists is perception or subjective truth. And this is real pervasive ideology, and that we all have our own individuated expression, our own individuated perception. Whether that perception vibrates with actual objective point of fact truth is a different story. You know, I gave the example of dark chocolate. Let's say Brad loves dark chocolate and I don't like dark chocolate. Well, the subjective truth or the perception of Brad is that dark chocolate is good. And the subjective truth my perception of dark chocolate is that it's bad. But the objective truth is that dark chocolate is there. It exists. It's real. It's a combination of cacao and maybe some sugar and some other, flavorings or other materials, but it's real. That's the objective truth. And if I were to say that dark chocolate doesn't exist, then my perception, my subjective truth is greatly far off from the objective truth, the actual truth that it does exist. So perception is real. Subjective truth does exist, but your perception can either align with what's actually true, or it cannot. I can say 2 + 2 = 5, but that's not my perception of that mathematical equation is not in alignment with what's actually true. So that's important to remember. So, and that's an ideology that keeps us from recognizing the truth, the objective existential truth of natural law, and understanding that there are principles that we can't see that are in operation upon us. And so the belief of solipsism, or the ideology of solipsism, keeps us separated from the truth. It keeps us separated from understanding that natural law is real and we are bound to it eternally. Another ideology, Satanism. And I am not talking about the 1962 Satanic Bible LaVeyan Satanism that Anton LaVey was cherry picked to write the Bible of and put an interesting little spin or a face on Satanism. I'm talking about the old religion, the true dark Luciferian Satanism that has been around longer than probably any religion. And Satan is not the worship of some red, scaly, fork-tongued, pitchfork-wielding entity. Satanism is the worship of the human ego, the beast consciousness, the materialistic consciousness, and the main tenets of that ideology are self-preservation is the highest law, survival of the fittest. I can step on you as long as I get ahead. It doesn't matter what happens to you as long as I get ahead. That's called social Darwinism. The most ruthless wins. Competition over cooperation, and 90 to 95% of this world are de facto Satanists. they operate upon the tenets of Satanism, and they would never identify as a Satanist because they don't have any idea what actual Satanism is. This is not,
because we've sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, like you said, we've been given the face of what Satanism is. Charles Manson, Anton LaVey, the 80s rock bands that, people committed suicide listening to. That's Satanism as we know it, the pentagrams and the, pitchforks and sacrifices. And it gives us an image of what we know Satanism to be. Yep. And meanwhile, it's wagging the dog, it's showing Absolutely. Us this. And meanwhile, the actual Satanism is all around us.
All around us. Your brothers, mothers, sisters, fathers, daughters, sons, that they operate according to the tenets of Satanism, and they don't have a clue that they do it. And that is social engineering at its finest. The true social engineers of this world, the puppet masters of this world, they don't call it Satanism. They don't have a name for their religion. The closest they refer to it as is the old religion. And what they basically are ancient master psychologists. They understand the human mind and how it works and how to manipulate it way better than the mass of population like us. So it's incumbent upon us to understand these things and learn about these. Satanism can be a real fad. Everyone loves to have the pentagram shirt or the inverted pentagram shirt. I'm sorry, the upright pentagram with the single point of the star pointing upwards is a very light occultist, uplifting, highly spiritual archetypal symbol. But the inverted pentagram with the 2 points facing up, representing duality over unity, is in separation from spirit. That's trendy, but people don't understand what those symbols are doing to the subconscious mind of individuals. Another one I want to talk about is religion, and this is referring to the religion of government, the religion of money, the religion of authority, the religion of statism, worshiping the state and having allegiance to the state rather than the truth. And, all other world cultural religions, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, all these things. There are, in the cultural religions, like I've already said, there are tremendous teachings. And I don't ever want to distract anyone or detract anyone away from studying religions. You should study religions, but we have to use our spiritual discernment and be able to take the seeds of truth that are scattered throughout all those religions, and also be able to view it from the understanding that ultimately these are hierarchical dominator mentalities that really cause humanity to live on their knees, begging some outside source for forgiveness and salvation, when really we are our own salvation. And I know a lot of the community that I'm friends with and that I teach workshops at, and that we know are really heavily influenced by New Age. Some call it New Age philosophy or New Age movement, but make no mistake about it, New Age is a religion, and it is what some would call the last cul-de-sac before the gold mine, because there is so much truth in so many of the New Age teachings that we can really develop ourselves spiritually, but we can also psychologically castrate ourselves in the process. New Age religion wants to, it is the ideology of solipsism, the belief that only perception matters, and that somehow if I don't perceive child sex trafficking happening around the world, that it's not real, or that if I don't perceive that there's a rapist in my community raping people, that it's not real. But that is heavily seen throughout the New Age movement. It's about, I don't perceive that, I'm going to vibrate higher than that. Okay, vibrate higher than that while these children are dying, or while these people are starving, or while this war is being conducted. You can vibrate higher than it all day, but if you're turning away from true suffering, you're not vibrating above anything. And
then
you can't just sit in
I was going to say, how high could you be vibrating?
Right. You can. And that's why, we have to be aware. New age movement, new age religion and philosophy, just like the other ones, has so much truth in it. Yes, we are all one. We are all expressions, individuated expressions of the infinite one mind, the infinite consciousness from which all life and material comes. Everything is vibration. Anything ever manifested first originates in thought. So thought does create reality, but it is not just your thoughts and your reality. This is a co-created experience that our thoughts drive our feelings and our actions that we. Oh, you can't hear me? You're not hearing me? Sorry. You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
Yep. It's all good.
So yes, take the good and the real good teachings and the truth from New Age, but don't become a disciple, or don't become a adherent to all things New Age. The Blue Avians and the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the Bashar channeled messages are not coming to save you. There's not some, hopefully there is. That would be great if they were right. If somebody was ready to swoop down and save humanity, but we can't depend on that. We are our own salvation, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. Yeah, and we cannot just sit in the lotus position for 12 hours a day and end the suffering of the world. The child starving in the streets of New Delhi or in Africa is not going to be fed simply by our meditation. Meditation is important. We should meditate, but it's
right.
not.
And it's just another way.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's just another kind of dogmatic view, and it negates our self of responsibility to
Yep,
to our community and to our being.
You said it, man. Just like it makes us feel good because we're afraid of the darkness of the world. And if somebody channels a message from a group of aliens that tells us everything is fine, everything's perfect, if this child is getting raped, it's just a part of the divine plan unfolding. You need to accept it and purge all anger and don't ever feel anger. Well, that's because this religion was designed to psychologically castrate the planet and to make people who would stand up and would speak out against objective right and wrong accept immoral actions, accept tragedies, and say, oh, these are okay, everything's perfect. Everything is an expression of God, but we have free will. And so we're not just puppets on a string. We can't, it makes us feel good because it makes us feel like we don't have to take responsibility or take any action. But if we want what we say we want, we do have to take action.
And that anger the anger that rises up to get stuff done, to oppose, the wrong. That's an action of God.
Yes. Yeah. God you were granted that anger so that you could carry out righteous action. The righteous indignation drives right action. Don't hold on to the anger. Have anger. Allow anger to come into you, and feel it. Allow yourself to view it objectively as a teacher. Ask yourself why you're getting angry, because you're supposed to feel it. If you're getting angry because your favorite sports team lost, you're squandering a gift. And get angry because children are being harmed. Get angry because your neighbor's freedom is being destroyed. Get angry because someone got shot. Whatever, get angry. Get angered by a true transgression, and don't squander that gift, because it's there to compel us into taking right action and to doing what's within our rights in service of the truth and in service of in the betterment of humanity. So all, those religions will keep you in a mind trap. And real quick, specifically, religions are made to drive us into a dialectic, particularly like Christianity and Islam want to drive us in one direction or another. They want to drive us either to hate the church and reject it outright and become full atheists who have no belief in spirit or creator at all, or they want us to cling so tightly to the beliefs that we are in a deterministic society. Everything is preordained by God and our actions don't matter here. The only thing that matters is the afterlife. So they either want you to reject completely the idea of God and believe that the universe is just some random grand cosmic accident, or they want you to cling so tightly to the concept of God to think that we're puppets on a string. But really the truth lies in the center.
Exactly.
The truth lies in the middle. There is a random component to creation and a deterministic component. It's not one or the other. The deterministic component is natural law and the dynamics and forces that the creator put into motion that bind us to the consequences of our actions, that create, that return effects for the causes we set into motion. And the random component of creation is our free will and how we choose to express ourselves in this creation. So it's not determinism or randomness, atheism or God. It's in the middle. We're not puppets on a string, and there is intelligence, behind underlying creation. So I know I went on a little bit longer on that one than I planned on, but yeah, those are some of the topics that I wanted to say, the ideologies that destroy freedom.
Nice. Hey man, I'm glad to have you on, dude.
Me too, man.
I appreciate that.
I've really enjoyed it, man. I really enjoyed it. Before I hop off here, I'll throw out just a couple, recommended sources of information that I'd like to point.
Oh yeah, great. Sounds good.
Anything by Manly P. Hall. This man was the most intelligent, not simply intellectual, but intelligence. This man had so much holistic intelligence of not only the esoteric and the occult philosophy, but the human mind and the nature of spirit and the nature of consciousness. He's got a YouTube channel. This guy wrote The Secret Teachings of All Ages when he was 25 years old. That was his magnum opus. It was a massive book. I've got it right here on the shelf behind me. But there's a society dedicated to him. He died in 1990, I think. But there you can go to the Manly Hall Society YouTube channel, and he gave over 7,000 lectures in his lifetime. And he would just sit down and extemporaneously spit off 2 hours of the most profound, life-changing wisdom that you can imagine. So my recommendation to anyone listening is go to the Manly Hall Society YouTube channel and just scroll down the hundreds of videos they have. They release 1 or 2 a week. They're archiving his entire lecture series. And just find one that looks like it's good for you, analyzing the anxiety complex, the victory of soul over circumstance, all sorts of lectures. Click on one and really listen to what this guy is saying, because he will help you understand yourself and your relationship to others and the universe more than anyone I know. The next one would be Mark Passio, whatonearthishappening.com. You can download a podcast player and listen to it. What on Earth is Happening is the name of his podcast. Probably the single most influential mentor that I've had in my lifetime. He's got about 240 podcasts. He's on YouTube. He's got a 9-hour long seminar called Natural Law, the real law of attraction and how to use it in your life. He gives seminars on demystifying the occult, true Satanism, freedom, everything. He gives entire lectures on New Age spirituality and the destruction of the sacred masculine, you name it. So look into Mark Passio. It's spelled passion without the N. Another one, Derek Bros. He's an investigative journalist with the Conscious Resistance Network. You can just go to Conscious Resistance. I think it's .net, but just type in your search bar, Derek Bros, Broze, or the Conscious Resistance Network. Another one, Larkin Rose, fantastic, really simply worded but powerfully spoken anarchist. He wrote a book called The Most Dangerous Superstition, required reading as far as I'm concerned. He's got an online seminar you can take called Candles in the Dark, where you sign up. It's not very expensive, and you get like lifetime access to these 6 seminars. I think it's about $75. But it really teaches you the psychology of speaking with statists or people who support the state and state-sponsored violence. It really gives you the psychology to approach and talk with people about anarchism or voluntarism without offending or going to battle with or arguing with anybody. It's just talking about something. So Larkin Rose, fantastic. And then Stefan Molyneux, he's got a French spelling of his last name, Molneaux, but he's another really outspoken anarchist that goes into a lot of debates on certain political topics and stuff. It's really interesting to hear his work and things like that. So I have hundreds more I could throw out, but that'll be good for now. Those are a couple of top ones I recommend for people. And then of course, if anybody's interested in working one-on-one with me through Zoom meetings, or if you're close enough in person, we offer anything to do with individual mental or emotional freedom, recovering from trauma, anxiety complexes, panic disorders. We jump into a lot of different things, and I can't do anything for you, but I can help you wield the tools that you have within to gain more understanding of yourself and how to evolve and grow beyond your suffering. You can email chad@aswithin.org or go to our website, www.aswithin.org.
Cool. Amazing, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course, man.
Everything you brought with you. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Thank man. You. Thanks so much for
Couldn't
having
ask
me
for a
on.
better first episode here.
I think it went well, man. I'm really glad. I'm really glad you had me, and I look forward to seeing what else you put out. And if we want to dive into anything else, I'd be happy to come back on anytime, and we'll get some more stuff together to talk about.
Sounds great.
Big blessings to you, friend.
Again, blessings and love to you guys, you and your family.
Absolutely. Big love to you. Big love to you too, man. We love you all.